Recording in progress.
Okay, so officially, hi and welcome. Welcome back to Think Differently. These are like mini master classes that I've been doing on a regular basis on different topics. My name is Laura Livingston. If we haven't had a chance to meet yet, I'm a business and mindset coach. I work with people one-on-one, people who run small businesses, doing good work in the world, whatever feels good and interesting to you. If you're using your gifts to make the world a better place, then you are my people and you are welcome here. A lot of times what I help people to do is to create a more healthy, I often call it a healthier business. We'll talk actually a little bit about what that means today, but to make your business more healthy, more profitable, and frankly more fulfilling, because I just don't think that it's worth being an entrepreneur if you're not enjoying yourself. And so I'm very much about how do we make this a process of building, growing, or scaling your business wherever you are in that phase. How do we make that process enjoyable for you along the way so that we're not just waiting for you to hit your next goal for you to be happy, but you can just actually enjoy the ride. It can be done, and that's what I like to do. So today we're talking, I have never done this before. I don't think. I used to have a Facebook group years ago, and I used to go live every week. So it's possible I did something like this before, but I definitely haven't done it in a long time, and I definitely can't remember. So today I'm kind of using my business as a case study. It's the end of the year, and I'm just kind of looking back and saying, here's what I did this year. Here's what created. This was the second best revenue year for my business ever. I had my biggest quarter ever, and a couple of other sort of wins under the wind that I want to talk about, sort of why I'm so proud of myself this year and why you should be proud of anything that you're doing. That's a question that I've been asking my clients. So I'm taking vacation starting next week. So we've been wrapping up our work for the year this week. And I've been asking them, what are you proud of? What are you proud of? What did you do this year? What are you proud of? Because it really doesn't matter what kind of year you've had. There's something to be proud of. And if we're not paying attention to that, then we won't pay attention to it when we do have something to be proud of. So what we're going to be doing is I'm just going to kind of use my business as a case study. What did I do this year that contributed to the results that I created? And what did I not do? Yeah. Where was my intro? Let me double check my notes because I have 97 things and I want to make sure I share this in a good order at the beginning. So I just want to set the context. So the context for today, and by the way, if you're interested in sort of a level set of, I also had a bunch of client wins this year, really, really, really awesome, epic client results. I feel like, especially in a year where there's businesses closing their doors, it's definitely a buyer's market out there. I have such love and respect and pride for my clients this year, many of them have made more money this year than ever, but a lot of them have also just sustained. And I think if you can sustain a solid business and healthy business and revenue and profit in a buyer's market, holy crap, what can you do when it's not a buyer's market anymore? And so that's very, very much the win. So I talked about that last week. When you get the replay for today, you're going to get an email with the replay for today's Think Differently. You're also going to get the replay for last week's as well, because I forgot to send it out to the people who joined last week. So you're going to get both. So that's also, it's not a two-part series, right? But like it's sort of like what worked well this year and how my clients got results and the sort of the main themes that I saw there. And then this is using my business as a case study, so it's much more deep dive behind the scenes. But they, as you can see, they kind of go together. They're a little bit of a year in review. And there's a few things that worked well for me that I mostly talked about last time. And so you can pick some of that up too. So you'll hear me kind of reference that. Okay. So a couple things. The key to any like business success is the context, right? Who cares? I actually am more proud of this year than I am of my biggest revenue year ever. And we're going to talk about why. But I think it's just really important to set the context. So I'm going to walk you through just a couple of like basics of how my business runs. I think it's really important also to say, especially if you're new to me, I know a lot of business coaches that we run the gamut, right, in terms of how we approach things. I'm very much you do you, you do it your way, find the way that works for you, find what works for you, and do more of that and stop doing the crap that everybody's telling you you should be doing. And so please listen today from that lens, right? I'm gonna explain why this is good for me and why this works for my personality and why this works for my work style. So this is definitely not a please copy paste my business. You're welcome to steal anything you want. I'm not doing anything like different than pretty much anybody else. So full permission to borrow something if it works for you, but that's not the reason that I'm sharing that. I'm not trying to tell you how to make a business like mine. And I think when I was in graduate school, right, we used to use case studies of businesses that were going through changes and going through different things, and we would look at the business in its entirety and understand the context. Then you can understand how to, I used to be in consulting, you can understand then how to work with them to make the changes and understand, like, when you change something over here, it's going to affect this over here. And are we okay with that? So I'm kind of using my business in that way. And so please listen to me from that perspective, right? Again, I'm not into copy paste. And this is not a, let me tell you how to do it. This is what worked for me. And there's so many lessons in this. And that's really what I want to share. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, so I think the first stage that I want to set is, I've shared this before, but 2023, so last year, I had a pretty significant dip in revenue. I was fine, but like definitely had a dip. There's 9 million reasons for that. I'm not going to dive into that today, but why I share that is because having a less than exciting, I was not excited about my money last year. It was fine. But having that and then having my second best year ever right after that, I know exactly what I did last year that also created these results. And so I guess my point is there's a couple of pieces. One, I'm mostly going to give you this year because we only have 45 minutes together. But that's also to say that I've also been in business for 7 years. And so I have compounded interest of the relationships and the, mainly the relationships especially, and the reputation, I guess, is maybe also part of it, that over the years that have served me. But I just think it's important to understand from that context. So this wasn't just my second best business year. It was my second best business year after a pretty significant dip. And so that's part of the story and part of why I'm so proud of myself. Because really, I think the celebration, there's a lot of celebrations for me, but the celebration for me is, one, I made it last year. Like that was the thing I was the most proud of last year, was that I was actually perfectly fine. Because I had been in business so long, because I had the relationships, because I had long-term, clients, because, and again, I wasn't in like dire straits, but I made it last year just fine, when I would have loved to have like made a shit ton of money. But the difference for me is this year over last year. The other difference for me, the main difference for me, is that this business is the healthiest it's ever been this year. So even when I go back and compare this year to my best business year ever, which I forget was 21 or 22, I was pretty maxed out, and I do this because I felt like I was hitting my head against the ceiling in terms of I was pretty much at max capacity. I was not really in a space where I could scale any further past what I had built other than raising my prices, right? Capacity-wise, I was maxed out. And so I'm almost back up to that revenue, but I have so much more processes and structures in place, and I have a team that really is kicking it. And I have more space. I've done a lot of work. One of the things I'm going to talk about, I've done a lot of work to be able to hold more clients. And so the business it's healthier. It's more profitable actually than it was the year that I had my biggest revenue ever. So, which means I'm paying myself more this year. But it's also just so stable and solid and set up. I have plenty of space to scale to make my next goal. And so that's the win for me. And so that's really what I'm sharing this from that perspective, right? If you're just interested in making a pop month, I don't have a lot of advice for you because that's not the kind of work that I do with my clients. We're here for the long run. Sometimes that sucks, but we're here to make the long run work. We're here to make business sustainable. We're here to have actual lives while we're running businesses. And so that's really kind of how I look at things. Okay. So I'm going to just quickly start with a couple things. If you don't know my business, just a few quick things just to like level set, right? I'm really going to like be in graduate school and be a case study. So this business does coaching. No. What I want to share is a couple of things that I think just right off the bat are important to know. Number one, I am a one-on-one coach. So I have had groups in the past, but my business model is very simple. It's all one-on-one. People work with me I have an intensive for 2 weeks, and then most of my work and most of my clients are in a 6-month container. Most of my clients this year, but also most of my clients from the last 7 years, most people have worked with me for a minimum of a year. It's not to say that they have to, right? They're only committing to 6 months, but most of my clients have renewed for at least a year. So I have a lot of renewals. I actually have a lot of return clients. And a lot of long-term clients. I think my longest term client at this point, we just finished year 4. I think it was year 4. 20, 21, 22, 24. No, 5 years. 5 years. We've been working together since 2020. So all that is to say, I often have client spaces open, but I also have a lot of long-term clients. And so that's just something important to know. Also, because I'm a one-on-one business coach, relationships are important in every business. Okay, so I'm not saying that, but people getting to know and trust me, they don't even really have to like me, but people getting to know and trust me is really, really important for my business and my business model, and you're going to see that reflected in my strategy. I've been in business 7 years. Most of my strategies have been a mix. Almost every single year, I have had a mix between networking and social media, and that percentage has changed and ebbed and flowed depending on the year. But I've always done at least a little bit of social media or at least a little bit of networking, even if the other one was a primary in a certain year. Other things to know about my business. Yeah, I have a team. So last year I did not have a coach, and I had one member on my team in addition to me. This year, I brought my coach back. I have my additional team member, and then I brought in one more team member who actually used to work with me a few years ago. So now we're me plus coach plus accountant, but I don't know. I talk to him a couple times a year. Me plus coach plus 2. Both of them are handling sort of the administrative and tech pieces. Okay. I also think it's really important to say I have a very supportive partner at home, and he does 90% of the cooking and grocery shopping. I also ran my business as a single person for the first 5 years or more. Yeah, we've lived together for 2 years. And I did change my business. When I had freer time, I was able to manage my brain easier when we moved in together. And I also have several clients that have brought to me this like annoyance of being single and having to do everything themselves in their business and then turn around and do everything themselves at home. And so I just have a lot of empathy for that. And I think when we're looking at setting the context, what always enables me to do better at my job is that I have a really stable home life, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I've also worked my ass off to do that. It's not like we just magically have a perfect relationship, but I think like we work at it and we have a solid, awesome, beautiful relationship. And so I just think that's something that is important to share. And I do not have children. Okay. The other thing I'll say, I took I did a couple things this year with my schedule that are different than that. I think, again, it's just context to know. I generally have one flex day a week. I used to take it off religiously, so that means I only worked 4 days a week religiously. This year, I really, really played with that flex day. I maintained a flex day. It used to be Fridays, now it's Wednesdays. But I checked the data, and it looks like I pretty much kept it, because I did work more this year. I pretty much kept that flex day flex, but I tended to take the mornings to be off, and then a lot of times I would use the afternoons to do work, more often than not. So maybe I would say generally 4.5 days a week I was working, again, to just give you that context, because I know I have clients that are working 20 hours a week, and then I have clients that are working 45 hours a week, and that is different, right? I've taken 6 weeks off, or I will have by the end of the year. I will have taken about 6 weeks off this year. And then I did I'm a big traveler, so I did a trip around the States to see friends and family in the spring, where I was kind of like a digital nomad, but I was staying with friends and family. And I was working, but I would say during that 2-month period, 2.5-month period, I was working, I don't know, mostly my full-time schedule, but not quite, a little bit less, maybe 75%. And then the final thing that I will add is I did something this year that I said I would never do, and that is that I said yes to, so I have a background in business consulting, specifically change management consulting, and helping big companies navigate big changes and implement big changes in their organization. A lot of times my clients were HR executives or team executives in charge of certain teams that were going to be affected by the change the business was creating. And I helped them navigate that. I was consulting around that. I also did a lot of leadership consulting, leadership coaching, leadership training, and executive coaching as a part of that. And I have a friend that owns a small consulting business, and she's working on creating a model and offering for women in leadership. And she asked me to help with that this year. And so I said yes. And so I've been doing a small consulting project very much on the side. I don't actually have my hours very well tracked. I need to go back and look. For the first half of the year, it was very slow. So it was probably a very little bit of my time. Second half of the year, I probably spent 10 to 15% of my hours were spent on working on that project. I think it will be a lot less than that next year. But I do think it's important to see that is a sideline source of income. It's coming technically through my business, but I think that's just another piece to know. Okay. Questions? What the hell did you do, Laura? Why is everything so great? What'd you do? Honestly, I didn't do anything. That's not true. What I really want to say is there were no major changes to my strategy this year. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I changed, but I just want to first say that to you. It wasn't really broken, but I way exceeded my expectations this year, because I doubled down on 3 things, basically. So if you hear nothing else, this is the quick answer to the story. Number 1, I doubled down on my ability to adapt, iterate, test, experiment, and adjust after that. I've always been doing that in my business. I always encourage my clients to do that. As a change management consultant, that specialty in understanding how humans adapt, how humans go through change, but also how businesses and organizations go through change. Like my coach said to me, you've been training your whole life for this year. But it's just a skill that I have cultivated my whole career, really probably my whole life. And it's a big piece of the work that I'm helping my clients do, to figure out when something isn't working as well as it could, what needs to change and what doesn't, right? So that we really understand and can look very neutrally and strategically at what's actually happening, not like, oh crap, my lead gen has slowed down. I better just completely start a new business and change my strategy, right? It's like, no, actually, like that adjustment piece is actually where the magic has been for me this year. And I think what I fundamentally believe about business, and that comes from having a master's in organization development I was like 25 when I went back to school to get that degree. And the way that I consulted to my clients back then is no different than the way that I coach my clients now, which is that our ability as businesses to adapt and evolve over time is the secret to sustainability and sustainable success. And so whether that's your craft and your relationship to the work you do, right? I actually started my business out as a hypnotherapist, and then I realized, okay, I better go back to my coaching roots. But that ability to evolve is what has enabled me to be fulfilled and successful as a person, right? To enjoy my business and for my business to be successful financially. And what I'm really pleased to see, even though I've been saying this shit for years, I'm really pleased to see some of the better coaches in the online space are now finally saying, yes, you have to test, adapt, iterate, and evolve. That concept was not really celebrated, but I think because we've had a buyer's market for a couple years, people have had to adapt and evolve, and that's just normal business, right? Like that's just very normal. I'm going to use Blockbuster as my very simple example, right? They didn't adapt fast enough to the changes in the environment, and that's why Netflix is the place where you go to get your movies now instead of Blockbuster, right? Okay. So number one, I just kept iterating. So that's why when you see me talk about the changes that I made this year, they were all fairly minor tweaks. Like the strategies were mostly the same. I just made adjustments. So that's number one. Number two, I doubled down on my marketing. So what really shifted in 2023, there were about four main things that shifted for me in 2023 that contributed to a decrease in revenue. One was I had a neck injury. Two was my marketing was, no, not my marketing. My lead gen, my pipeline was shrinking. So it was taking me longer to make sales. Okay. And I already, with most people who do a one-on-one high ticket offer, usually have a longer sales process than somebody who's selling something, not always, who's selling something lower ticket and shorter time frame. And so what happened was I already had a somewhat long sales process, which is normal, but then that got longer, right? And so I didn't have the pipeline to sustain it at the same level that I used to. And so while it was still working, it wasn't working as well. So I doubled down on my marketing this year, and I'm going to talk about that. And then I doubled down on my mindset. Like, it's very simple, basic stuff. Be able to adapt and evolve, do marketing, and keep getting better at it, and do mindset work. I mean, if you're annoyed that I'm not giving you rocket scientist information, I'm really sorry. But maybe you can take it as more empowering. That I just had a call with a potential client earlier this week, and she was really nervous because she's losing her enjoyment in the work. And she was really nervous, like, oh God, like, does this mean I have to burn it all down and start a whole new business? And when we dove in and started talking about it, it really was that she just needed to vary her clientele a little bit, right? So, just a little bit of, I'm trying not to give it away, like her privacy, but like, rather than like working with these people, she just needed to work with these people, right? So that she had a little bit more like something interesting and juicy to dive into. And once she thought about opening that space up, she was like, oh, I just want one client like that. I'm actually good with all my clients now, right? Like, and so just to give you that perspective around how much those things can change. Okay, so let me think about the order. Are there questions, comments, anything that doesn't make sense? Let me know in the chat. Okay. I think what I'll do, depends on how much time we have. I think what I'll do is I'll start by the 5 best decisions I made this year, and then I'll do a quick run through of my strategy and kind of what I do and don't do. Let me check this question. Hear more about my lead gen. Okay, perfect. Yep. Okay. So yeah, I'll switch that around. I'll do that. I'll talk about my strategy too, because that kind of gets to the lead gen, answer the lead gen question. So as I said in the beginning, every year I have done pretty much the same thing in different ways. Email and social media and networking. I've changed that percentage almost every single year since I've been in business. And over the last few years, that percentage has gotten a lot closer. So it's not 50-50, but it's gotten closer to that. For many, many reasons, when I injured my neck, I was not able to create content. Typing and even writing, handwriting, was really, really hard. Holding my phone and recording a video was really, really hard. So like this kind of Zoom thing was fine. And so I just did a lot more virtual networking, thank goodness, than content writing back then. And then, oh, we got one more person joining, hold on. Okay, and then, so the only real change that I made high level around those 2 things, there were 3. I forgot one. So one is this year, because my neck is feeling so much better, and I still have a little bit of stuff to deal with, but for the most part, I'm almost normal. So because of that, I have more time and space to put more written content out. And so I'm doing that. And so I basically took all the time and energy that I'm spending on my marketing, which primarily from a content marketing standpoint, or primarily is social media and networking. So I sort of adjusted and I said, well, I can do more writing now. So I'm going to put out more written content. I put more time and energy around my networking events, which I have, which many of you have already, that's how most people find me. That is my top of funnel, if you will. That's where a lot of people find me. And then I've got one more person coming in. So more written content, more just focus, right? The time was the same for the networking events, but more focus on that. And then I decreased utilizing other people's audiences in order to give myself time and energy to focus more on my content. So again, so let me stop. One of the things I stopped was speaking in other people's audiences. That is a great strategy. That strategy has worked for me every single time I do it, and it is on the books for next year. It was not the top priority for my business this year, so I stopped doing it because I could get the same benefit in other ways. So speaking and doing networking in other people's networking groups, I decreased that significantly this year. It's not that I never went to another group and I only went to mine, but I way took that down this year. And in its place, I spent that time more focused on doubling down on my marketing and specifically doubling down on getting better at writing my content. That was my number one goal for the year for myself. And it freaking worked. But it worked because I set the intention. It worked because I put in the time. It worked because I put in the practice. It worked because I decided that I wanted to get better at it. And I don't think that I was bad at it before. In fact, I've had several people this year tell me how much they love my content. And I love that. I want to be mindful of how I say this. I think I came into this world a good writer, so I think I had that from the get-go, and I do write all my own content at the moment. I have hired out, but right now I write all my content. And because I said my sales cycles were so much longer, I knew that that was one way that I can speak directly to my audience. I also knew that was one way that I wasn't really able to do that effectively the year before because I did not have the physical neck to put that out. And when you're in pain and you're trying to be creative, it doesn't work. And so that was the biggest challenge for me in really from 22 to 23, because it's been a long process. And so trying to be creative and trying to speak to my people with my heart wide open and then being in pain, like it only just goes so far. So not only did I have the neck to do that, but I also just really set intentional time and energy every single week to creating better content. And the other piece about that I want to say is there's a mindset piece behind that of like, I just decided that my marketing could be better. It wasn't bad, but I knew that it worked when I did it well. And so who's to say that I can't just keep getting better at it? And this is where I think it's really important, back to that whole conversation of, are we evolving, iterating, and adjusting over time? Because if you just want to hurry up and get a strategy that you can put on repeat and copy paste all your content from last year into this year so that you never have to write another piece of content again, in a lot of cases, that will get you something. But allowing yourself and your business to improve over time, this is not about I am actually the opposite of a perfectionist. This is not about that. This is about giving your business, and in this case, my content marketing and my writing to my audience, an opportunity to improve. And I want to back up. I knew it was already something that had worked for me in the past, but it just wasn't working as well as it could for 40 million reasons, right? And so I just prioritized that. I focused on my mindset around, I'm just going to get better at this. And so what did I do? I started following people that I thought had good content. What are they doing? I have worked with copywriters in the past. I reached out to them. I effectively got information from them, not for free, but I got what I needed from them to get the learning that I wanted. I worked on that with my coach. That was one of our top priorities when we came back to work together this year. So that's just been my primary focus, is I'm just practicing that and getting better and better and better at that. And that's also at the top of the list for next year, because it just works. And because honestly, I've kind of fallen back in love with it because I spent the time to do it. The other thing that I changed is I really set a clear intention between LinkedIn and Instagram. LinkedIn works better for me. And the platforms, if you haven't noticed, have just diverged so drastically in the last couple of years that for me to do well over Instagram, I need to do videos. But for me to do well on LinkedIn, yes, videos work there too, but it's different format, different content. And my long form content does well over there. And so letting myself off the hook from Instagram, I do still post there, but you'll just see my long form content, right? So I'm not like actively trying to grow my Instagram. My focal point is on LinkedIn, which also is easy to throw to my email audience. Is that making sense? So strategically for 7 years, I've done a mix of social media, email, and networking. I'm still doing all those things. Like there's no secret. I just changed the percentage, and I decided to decrease the number of things I was doing so that I could do them better. So that's number one. Number two is, many of you have come to me through my events. You're at an event right now. So I have over the years had two different kinds of events. One is a masterclass like this, right? I've been calling these mini masterclasses, but where I just kind of go live and talk and share thought leadership and things that will help you hopefully run your business more healthfully and more sustainably. So I've been doing these. I started these. So master classes, whether they are big master classes that are like 90 minutes and I like spend 2 weeks promoting them and I sell off the back end, or like this mini master class where it's just, I tell you on Tuesday what I'm talking about on Thursday. I have used that strategy in slightly different ways for most of the 7 years that I've been in business. I love, love, love these. It gives you a chance, especially because I do one-on-one, it gives me a chance to sort of talk through different things and to teach and to have you learn and have you see how I think about business. They just convert really well. But they also, if you're thinking about doing an event like this, what I love about them selfishly, they convert really well, and that's the reason to do it for the business. But the other business reason that I love it is because I get so much information and market research based on the questions that I receive, based on when somebody says, oh, this was my big aha from that day, which might not have been like what I thought was the best thing I said, right? It's just what did they receive? And then I know what words they're using, what problems are they telling me they're having, right? And then I can just keep creating content to that. It's also a lot easier for me to deliver one of these than to sit down and write, because I do have only so much capacity for my neck. So these have been fantastic events. Last year I did a monthly master classes, maybe every other month, something like that last year. And that went into Q1 of this year. And then I started filling up again and did not have the capacity, even though they work. And so I kept pushing them off and decided in August, I still didn't have the capacity to do like a proper big masterclass with a full promo. And so I started doing these because all I need to do is prepare and sit down and hit record. And so though these have sort of substituted for my big masterclasses, I am going to do a big one next year in last week of January. Let me just see if there's anything else about that. So again, same strategy, do some sort of masterclass webinar-y thing, but I've just changed the sort of how often I do it, the topics that I focus on, and how they get delivered. And then I'll talk about networking. There's a question here in the chat. Let me check. Okay. How do you promote your master classes? So for the I'm calling them big master classes as compared to these. What I normally do is I'll do 2 weeks. 2 weeks in advance, I'll promote them. Usually in my email, for my email list, I'll put it on LinkedIn and Instagram. In the past, I've also shared them in Facebook groups. That's also a really great strategy. Sometimes we'll do that, sometimes we won't. But usually that's what I'll do to promote that for 2 weeks, have the thing, and then I'll do usually have some giveaways in the masterclass. Some kind of sale, or like I'm selling something off the back end, right? Like sign up for a discovery call, or I have a sale on something. And then I'll do usually, I'd have to look, at least 3 sales emails off the back end of the masterclass for people that sign up. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay, networking events, most of you have been to those. There's no real changes to those this year other than I'm just still doing them, which means that they've just continued to grow and compound in size and in terms of the people that join. I will say I did spend some additional time this year being more intentional about what I wanted to share with the people who joined the group, to let them know the kinds of people to bring in and the way we're going to do stuff here and things like that, so that I maintain I think integrity. Integrity might not be the right word, but we have a very special vibe and people really love them, and I do want to grow them, and that does serve my business, and I want it to still just be, I don't want it to be a massive group of just anybody. I want it to be I want it to grow and continue to be a really beautiful funnel for my work and frankly for my audience, because you can come in and create business there too. And I just feel that is just a really great way to do things. So I have been very intentional with my marketing and with the way that I position the groups, so that when people share them, they're sharing them with that context. And I think that has really helped as well. The final piece I want to share is I've done a lot of free calls. Free one-on-one mini coaching sessions. I did my very first Think Differently this year on August 1st. If you want the replay, just let me know. Just hit reply to the email and I'll send it to you. And I did a whole one on how to do free offers without like getting put in the friend zone or burning out or overdoing it, right? Because a lot of people tell me, why are you still doing free offers when you've been a coach for 7 years? Isn't that for new coaches? No, it's a freaking strategy, and it's really fun. And I would much rather coach than market. And so it works. It is a strategy. You can overdo it. I have overdone it. I do not always have them available. It just depends on what's going on, whether I have a spot to sell or whether I have capacity, and whether and frankly, I also use those. If you're not using those for market research, you are missing half the boat. It also helps me to see if somebody would be a good fit for working together. So it's not a discovery call, but we're kind of both, we get the same reason that a discovery call is great. You both get to see if it's a good fit. It's just an added bonus to a free call. So I'm all about them. I will die on that hill. They are not for everyone. I'm not saying, again, please don't take my strategy and think that you have to copy paste everything for your business, but they work really well for me. Back to the very beginning when I said, why does this, please keep the context. And I'm like, I'm doing it my way. Let me just tell you why this works for me, but you take what works for you and leave the rest. One of the reasons they work for me is because I'm a one-on-one coach. I am the girl that goes to the bar and grabs somebody to talk to one-on-one, and we have deep conversations over a beer, right? That's just how I operate. That's who I am. I like to sit down and have deep conversations with people. My Real Connections networking event is small group conversations where we dive deep on an important topic. Like, this is just me and how I like to do stuff. And so getting on a free call and coaching someone is not a sacrifice in the slightest. I would much rather do that all day, every day. I do like writing my content. That also creates clients for me. That's also important. But if I'm going to spend more time in one place or another, that's also the fastest way. But it's a lot more fun for me. And so I'm just happy to open up extra calls on my calendar to do that. Whereas I have clients that are like, how can we take the call limit down? Like, how can we speak to as few people as possible? They are executing a different strategy than I am. So that's the other reason why that works for me, because I like them. And they are my best conversion rates. My highest conversion rates come from those free calls. Okay, the only other main thing that I did this year is I have always had a 6-month coaching program and some sort of smaller option. I've called that an intensive for a long time. The intensive has been, over the years, a single session. It's been 1 week. It's been 2 sessions. It's been 1 month. I've changed that time frame up a million times. It's really the same thing. It's just a tiny bite-sized portion of my coaching program, right? It's just one-on-one coaching. But I've changed that time frame up over the years for different reasons. This year, I changed it. Last year I had single sessions, and that worked really well. It was because my sales, it also especially worked to counteract the fact that my sales cycles were so much longer. And so it did bring in some revenue. It did help get some people off the fence a little bit faster. Single sessions have never been my favorite thing. So even though I love my free single sessions, I know that doesn't make any sense, but that's just what I like. Mainly because I feel like if you're going to pay me, I need more time with you. I just don't feel good about that tiny little bit of time. And so I've changed it now to 2 weeks, to a 2-week. So it's like we have a session, you have a week of support in between, then we have another session, you've got a week of support. And it either stands alone or people can roll that in. Hey, I loved working with you, let's not stop. And we just roll into the 6-month program. So I've always had that tiny bite-sized piece, but what I changed this year is I changed it to be 2 weeks. I feel like it's my sweet spot. It was like a month and then a single session. And then I think it was May or June where I said, how about we just meet in the middle at 2 weeks? And testing that out this year has felt really, really good to me. So I'll keep it for the foreseeable future. I also changed the positioning on that, and I changed it to being focused on offers. It was one of the top things that people earlier in the year were choosing as the topic for their free sessions, right? So I used that market research. it was also one of the things that I went back and looked at every time somebody new comes to me to start working together. What are one of the first few things that we do? And I work with people in all different phases of business. And so oftentimes I just feel like, there's no commonalities. It's all different. Everybody's different. But that was not different. I found so many people, we were at least, even if it was just they were educating me on how they operate with their offers so that I could see whether it was like how they put them out into the world, like how they positioned them, how they marketed them, how they talked about them, or if it was the behind the scenes stuff of like how it was to deliver, right? A lot of my service providers were really looking at creating efficiencies. If you're doing work for your clients, how do we put work in the queue? How do we set boundaries around that work? How do we navigate team delegation and that type of thing when we're service providers in that way, like a done for you kind of service? And so that's oftentimes where we're going, well, that's still looking at the offer, right? We're still making sure that those offers. And so I positioned the intensive to be focused on offers. So I just changed the wrapping paper and the timing. And then I promoted the crap out of it. That worked really well too. Marketing works. Marketing works. Okay, let's see. I'm going to pause for questions because we are running out of time. I'm going to stay on for 8 more minutes, but if you need to run, you're welcome to go because I think I set these for 45 minutes and I can talk. But let me just see if I can. Yeah, I do have a couple more things I want to share. When people don't take me up on the free offers, any advice for this? Yeah, and how do you ease any resentment that may arise when doing these free calls? Then I take them off. I stop offering them if I feel any resentment, or I do some mindset work, or I call my coach, or all of the above. Yeah, I think, the resentment piece, I did a live a long time ago about resentment. It's one of your greatest teachers. Usually, oftentimes it's telling you something else, right? Like I know that if it's probably not about the person on the other side of the Zoom call from me, right? Something's going on in here. So one, knowing that. Two, when I sit down to serve a person, I just sit down to serve a person and I try to put myself out there. And then, but yes, oftentimes the resentment will come later, right? That's a lot of the times the things that the clients will come to me with. But I think it's about testing the capacity. So 2 ways to do that: offer them and then stop offering them, right? So I had them available almost all the time for a while, but I managed that capacity with my calendar. So it would only let so many people book in a week or a day or whatever. So there was some control around that, right? It wasn't like they weren't getting priority to my schedule over my clients, right? So I had controls with my tech in the background, one. But then I also, over the years, I have always had free sessions as a strategy, but free sessions haven't always been available. Does that make sense? So like right now, you can't go on my website and find a free session. They're not available to the public, but I've been giving them away for free for people who join these events, which I forgot to tell you. I'll share that in a second. But I use them as giveaways. I use them as thank yous. I had a discovery call with someone a couple of weeks ago. She was thinking about taking me up on my December spot. That spot got taken. And she said, I think the new year will be a better time for me. So I'm offering her a free session so that that'll help her make her decision, right? So I'm just using them right now. I'm using them as I want. So let yourself play with that too. That helps with the resentment versus like, I'm just always available, right? I think that's rarely a good call. It's like, how can you put limits on it? Even if the link is always available, maybe there's only one per week, or there's something more sustainable. Or if you've got like it's a great thing to do if you're promoting a big group, a group that's starting. It's a great thing to do if you're like, I just want to fill one more coaching spot. Like I'm ready to sign one more client. Like it's a great thing to get you back in the momentum and the motion of serving the clients. And again, only if you have something that you can do for free. Coaching is a really easy one for that. So when people don't take you up on the free offers, so I don't mind. Like if I put it out there and people aren't buying, the free session, that's okay, then I take it away for a little while. But usually if I like one-on-one offer someone, right? So if I said, hey, like in this example of the woman who I had a discovery call the other day with, like if she doesn't take me up on that, that's okay. And I think the key then is to just have more people in your pipeline so that she doesn't have to take me up on it, or maybe she'll take me up on it. I'm going to make this up. What if she takes me up on it? I think she's not taking me up on it because she didn't respond, and then she signs up for it in like March, right? Like we're just going to let it all be good. And then a lot of times people, and I've had people sign up with no free calls. But I think it's like what the piece is around your mindset that's getting you uncomfortable is often the story of people telling you shouldn't give shit away for free and it's never going to work and they won't buy. And I just want to represent, like, that's actually one of my best strategies. It works great for me. It works great for a lot of people. It's not for everybody. But I think it's whatever the mindset piece is that's coming up for you around it, that's the work. And then if you go through that and you're like, yeah, that's just not worth it to me to offer free calls to work on this piece, fine. Now you know. But if it's a good edge for you to work, like, start small. That's the other example, recommendation I will make is start small. Okay, I have 900 things. I'm going to share really fast my top 5 decisions because I think now that I gave you the strategy breakdown and a couple of other pieces of context, I think I can share this with you quicker to let you know. Number 1, these are not in order, but these are my top, I just decided these are my top 5 decisions that I've made. 2, I've already talked about. Number 1, I decided to double down on my marketing, which meant that when I decided to double down, I also decided to focus and to do better on fewer things, right? So we talked about that a lot with writing content, for example. That was a very clear strategy. It also helped me decide things like saying no to speaking engagements, things like that. Same with like even just prioritizing LinkedIn over Instagram, right? That was a focal decision that helped me get better at LinkedIn content so it can grow better. And I'm just going to let Instagram be what it is and it's fine and I'm still using it, but it's just not my number 1 priority. That really, really supported me. Also, we should always be working on our marketing. Sorry. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to not be working on it. It just was my top priority this year. There might be other years where that's not my number 1 priority, but it was my top priority this year. And that served me so well. And again, as I said in the beginning, for those of you who missed it, for me, the win is the dollars. I'm always celebrating the dollars. I'm very happy to receive money. But for me, the win is that in a year where it was a buyer's market, I was able to really thrive. And I know that the things that I doubled down on, I know the stuff that I focused on, right? As I said, I didn't do anything like interesting, different. I just basic business principles. I just solidified my business foundations that I just feel that I'm much more confident and comfortable and stable and sustainable. My business is, so am I, than ever. So this is my healthiest business year ever across the board by far. And if I can do that in a buyer's market by doubling down on my business basics, imagine what my business can do when marketing is just faster and easier and more effective or what have you. People want to buy more stuff. Okay, so double down on marketing. I double down on my mindset. I'll leave that. That's ongoing. That's forever. I'm a mindset coach. I'm always improving. And I want to just quickly say, I don't think that mindset is about finding problems and solving them. Yes, I have limiting beliefs. Yes, I have shit that I've been working on forever that I will continue to work on. But I decided to improve myself. That's really what mindset work really is. And so I doubled down on that. And as a mindset coach, I was already doing a lot of it. So I spent more time on me. Masterpiece in evolution. Yes, I love that. I spent more time on this thing than ever. And it absolutely paid me back in spades. And I have a healthier brain and mindset for it. I'm happier. So even if I made less money this year, I'm still happier. That's still a win. I said yes. Okay, really fast. I said yes to maybe overbooking myself this year. As a person who has burned out probably from high school on. Most of my clients like have to unravel from overworking. I have to unravel from protecting myself from overworking. My perspective on what's a healthy workload for myself is always a little bit skewed, and I have to test that out. I just know this about myself. Fear of burnout is my biggest fear in business. So I tested that. Okay, double down on my marketing. So I brought in a bunch of clients. Then I doubled down on my mindset so that I can handle what I think might be too much. And I tested that shit out. I had my best quarter ever. I onboarded more clients than I normally would at once. Then I continued to stagger the way that I normally do. So I had a little peak, and then I always stagger my clients 1 or 2 people per month, and I went back to my regular. And what I learned from that is that I can handle it. And what is fully booked for me is now a different number. But I had to live that to know how many clients I'm ready to serve now at a time, which is different than last year, which is different than 5 years ago. Double down on marketing. I doubled down on mindset. I said yes to more clients at once, and I think there's a lot of caveats there. So please don't just take this to mean I think that you should hustle. That was specific to me and me working my edge. I leaned way more into my team. We didn't talk about this, but I brought my coach back this year. I expanded my team. I've leaned way more into team support, which also then freed me up to support those clients, right? So that's the final piece of context I want to be really, really clear about. I'm not actually working more hours, really, but the work is getting done somewhere else. And then I brought my coach back. That's the other. I put my coach as the second one. So team, the like behind the scenes support, running the business, and then my coach. And I think the final thing I want to say is it was so right for me to fly solo I love my coach. We've been working together for years, and I'm so grateful for the first phase in our work. I'm so grateful that I flew solo. I needed that for my work, my mindset. And I'm so glad to have her back, that the minute I had my best month of the year, I reached out to her and I was like, so I'm going to renew with you. I know we're not up for renewal for like 2 or 3 months, but I'm just letting you know I'm going to renew, because I just always want to take that money and invest it back into the business and invest it back into myself. And I just know that is what helps me. Back to that whole, like, I'm not using my coach to help me solve problems, although yes, I still have problems and things. And I have a whole list of mistakes I didn't tell you about. But I am always ever going to be a better person, a better business owner, a better decision maker, a better coach, and have a healthier business if I have the right support. And right now, that's absolutely the support that supports me. Okay. I'm going to have to do a part 2 because I really have too much to say. And especially because I made mistakes this year that I think we all need to learn from. And they're also because I'm not a perfect person. But I also want to say, like, I made this whole list, you guys, of mistakes that I made. And I still had a great year, right? Nothing is perfect. So what I want to leave you with is, however your year was, please do a year in review for yourself. You will find something to be proud of. And I bet you'll find more. Even my clients who've had stellar years, they're like, I don't know. I'm like, what about this and this and this and this, right? That's just what we do. That's how the human brain works. So go take some time, even if you wait till the new year, but just take some time to reflect on your year, reflect on what's working, and how can you double down on that? How can you make edits and adjustments and tweaks to what's already working versus trying to run around and solve problems of what's not working? Oftentimes that resolves itself. And if you want support, I have had so many clients make comebacks this year. I would love, 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 and be honored to support you in that. Or if you're like, yeah, I'm actually pretty good. I'm just ready to do more of this and ready to be a better person, ready to not make business so hard and enjoy the crap out of next year. I would love to support you with that as well. So if you're interested in working together, the link is here in the chat. It'll also be in the follow-up email, and it's just a free call. I don't have any more calls this year, but it's just a free discovery call. You can just hop on anytime. We can talk about what it would be like to work together. I've got 1 spot left for January. I've sold 1, I've got 1. And then other than that, we're looking at February start dates, I think, unless I change my mind and decide to do something else in January. But thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my year wrap up. Thanks for being part of my year, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much.